right, everybody, please find your seats. Pound your beers. Get drunk. Cheers, cheers. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming out to this Chiang Mai SEO community event. This is a pre-event for the Chiang Mai SEO Conference. We're really excited. All you guys came into town year after year. It's super humbling that you guys come out to this little small city in Thailand just to learn some really nerdy stuff. I'm humbled. So in a second, I'm going to pass it over to Ted Kubaitis. Nailed it. Ted approached me like a couple months ago. I'd say maybe about 9 months ago. He's told me about this tool, Cora, that he has. Cora, I had been hearing a lot about. So he said, here's a free license. Give me a test drive and let me know what you think. And basically what it does is it dumps out every piece of data you could possibly even imagine for your niche. And I was blown away, and I just thought, Ted might be equally or maybe massively nerdier than I am. And I was just shocked. I'm really excited to pass it over to you. I know you're going to drop some knowledge bombs. I heard some great things about your presentation, so take it away, you guys. Give it up for Ted.
Thank you. Holy shit, you guys know how to pack a house. I am so thankful that you've come to hear me talk. And if I drift too far away from the microphone, just hold up your hand and I'll think you have a question and I'll just bring it up and just drop your hand and then I'll know I'm being too quiet. So I'm from Seattle. If you don't know anything about me, I was a hidden in-house SEO for a large online retailer for over 17 years. I took them from $5 million a year in revenue to over $65 million a year in revenue. People kept asking me, where do you get this amazing data? And I had all these custom scripts that I would write and run to pull measurements, and they would be blown away by this information I have. And eventually I realized there's an opportunity. Being in my own shell, I just assumed that this is how everybody does SEO. And I just figured everybody was out there writing their own scripts, pulling their own data. I'm going to show you some things. And so first, I'm going to explain correlation in SEO. And the number one thing you'll hear about Cora is, oh, it's too complicated. There's too much math, and I'm afraid of math. But I'm going to dumb it down because it's actually not complex at all. For example, SEOs are kind of like contractors who build decks for houses, except they're contractors who don't have measuring tapes. And you hear advice in SEO like, oh, your page, to be ideally tuned should have 1,200 words. That's the ideal word count for a blog post. But that is exactly the same thing as if a contractor building a deck said, it doesn't matter how big of a deck you're building, the ideal size piece of lumber is 7 foot 6 inches. And you gotta eyeball it, so just wing it. And SEOs are doing this all the time. They're not measuring, and it creates a big problem. It creates a big problem in costing. You're gonna bid out some work. I'm gonna build any size deck, flat rate, same price. We all know SEOs who are doing that. And the only way you can solve that is through empirical measurement. But once you have that data, that measurement data, something magical can happen. There's this nerdy mathematical concept of correlation. And I'm going to show you why it works. If the clicker cooperates. There we go. So I'm going to tell you a story. There's a Facebook group I was in months ago, and I'm sure some of the people here saw a conversation I had with somebody. This certain somebody basically said, Ted, you and your software are are full of shit. I'm an expert in statistics. This is him telling me what an expert he is. And my keyword has 1.7 million estimated results. And you are pulling the top 100 search results and doing statistics on it. And I know, because I'm an expert, that that sample size is inadequate. So we went back and forth with 20 exchanges, and today I'm going to destroy his argument. Okay, so these are products from Amazon. I'm not going to tell you what category they are. Wait, I'm supposed to stop. You guys are supposed to cheers. I like this game. Okay, so these are products from a category in Amazon. I'm not going to tell you what category. I want somebody in the audience here to tell me how these products are sorted. When you think you got it, blurt it out. All right. Did you need all 10 samples to figure that out? You probably were good with 5. So I'm using 100. And when we use correlation, this is what we're doing. We're saying, what is the factor, the contributing factor that is sorting these results? So can we use math to figure out how a result set is sorted? And you just witnessed the miracle of 5 samples figuring out that our ranking factor here was price descending. You didn't even need 100. And so for someone to tell me to do what you just did, that I need to have, 150,000 samples, that's simply not true. What we do when we use math and science and SEO, and there's a number of math and science SEO people here. There's Kyle Roof from Page Optimizer Pro. There's Bree and Viola. And there's more of you out there. But what we do is we assume everything is not a factor, because that's what you do in science. You say it's all bullshit until we prove it. And so we assume that everything is not a factor. So this is a hypothetical factor. So we got our number 10 spot on Google, number 9, number 8, number 7, as we approach number 1 on Google. And then we have our hypothetical factor measurements. But when you look at this, this could be a random distribution. We could almost say, heads, tails, heads, heads, tails, heads, heads, tails, heads, tails. That feels pretty random to me. But when they look like that, we think they're rigged. We think those are contributing to the sort order of the results. So when we use statistical correlation, we're looking for these. But we assume they're all going to be these. And what's so cool is, cheers. But what's so cool when we do this is that in 2 to 4 minutes, we can measure hundreds, approaching 600 different possible SEO factors. And we can find out which ones look like this. And they may have looked like this in the past, and Google might change. It might not be true today. Google might change it tomorrow. So all of your SEO knowledge, every bit you have on what works, could be gone in an instant, and you won't even know it unless you're measuring, unless you're looking for the change. And every day when somebody asks me a question, my web page is stuck on page 2. What do you recommend I do? I always respond, what's the domain? What's the keyword? Because I need to look. So this is some real data. So these are the charts that are in the Cora output. And so the same thing, we got page 10, page 9, page 8, heading to page 1, and then we have our factor measurement. In this case, the factor is number of sentences. Our keyword that we are using was DUI lawyer Los Angeles. And we have a track domain that we're following, so we got the measurement for the domain we're trying to rank. And what you can see in the graph is we have a below average measurement for page 2, but we need to have an above average measurement on page 1. And so we can see what we need to do for that factor. Same thing down here. This is keywords and sentences, and keywords is a special word, and I'll explain that in a minute. But here we are, below average measurement on page 2, but we need to be up here with above average on page 1. And it changes. Like if you're doing SEO for plumbers and they have 4 service areas, you know, Tacoma, Seattle, Olympia, and Vancouver, the degree of tuning you need will change in each location. I swear to God. You might rank easy in Olympia and be pulling your hair out in Tacoma, and the reason is different websites. Because a lot of people, a lot of SEOs, think that Google is ranking your web page. But the fact is, Google's not ranking your web page. They can't. It's impossible. Google has over 200 trillion URLs in their system. They cannot possibly be manually curating the results, saying your website should be number 5 and your website should be number 8. There is not a human being doing that work. It's all driven by the algorithms. The algorithms are using measurements, and those measurements come from the competitors for your keyword. You know who's ranking your website? The other websites that are ranking for that keyword. Their measurements, their factor measurements, are being stack ranked. And wherever your measurements are, that's where you fall in the stack ranking. So if you want to be competitive, you need to measure. And you need to make sure that your factor measurements are competitive compared to the other websites who are forcing you into your slot. So how it works. There's a number of ways to do this. There's more tools than just my tool. There's Page Optimizer Pro is another way to do it. A lot of the big platforms have measurements. The way my software works, and the way a lot of the software works, is something similar to entering in a keyword and entering in the URL or domain that you're trying to rank for that keyword. And when you do that in Google, Google will make certain words bold in the search results. Now, here, my software highlights them and makes them yellow, but it was Google that made those words bold. And the reason Google makes those words bold is because they're saying, look how relevant our search results are for the keyword you entered. They're bragging, they're showing off. But it's a two-way street, because they're saying those are the magic words that make your page relevant for the search term. So we collect those, and we measure them everywhere they occur. So when I show you more of the software, you will see factors like keywords and H1 tags. Whenever you see that word keywords, remember I said that's special? It means any combination of these variant words that make your page relevant for the search term. Whenever you see a factor called search terms in H1 tags, it means exactly the search term you entered into the search bar. And so that's how you understand the names of these factors and what they mean. So see. Here we go. So we enter in a domain name, a law firm. We enter in a keyword, DUI lawyer, Los Angeles. And down here it tells us our track domain was found. That's very important because sometimes your website doesn't rank. And there's features to force it to rank. So if you have a page that's never been indexed, you can get the measurements for it. But once we have it set up the way we like, we just get data. And now it's collecting the top 100 results. And it's using embedded Chrome. I've gone to great lengths to make this software behave as close to Googlebot as we possibly can. There's a lot we don't know about, but it's rendering the DOM, it's pulling the rendered HTML. Now it's measuring the 570 factors that we currently have in. Within the next couple of months, we'll probably break 600. And people ask, where do these factors come from? Well, they come from you guys. Every time somebody tells me something that might be a factor that I can go out and physically measure, I put it in. I don't care what is or isn't a factor. If it's reasonable to think it might be or could be, I want to measure it. And so now it's done. And what it does is it creates an Excel spreadsheet, the mother of all Excel spreadsheets. And the first sheet I want you to look at is the roadmap. What the roadmap is it's a list of the strongest correlating SEO factors for your keyword, but it's only the ones that your website has a deficit in. So it's your action plan on how you get competitive parity with the rest of the search results. Cheers. And so the strongest factors are up at the top, and they incrementally get weaker as you go down. And so if you wanted to work by things that move the needle the most mathematically, you have that sort order. But I don't recommend that. You see all those yellow ones? I have people saying, Ted, I got the roadmap, but which factors should I work on? And I tell them, well, it's obvious. You should work on the easy ones. And they're like, but Ted, which ones are the easy ones? And so this is the one place where I inserted my opinions into the technology. And I openly disclose it. This is just my opinions. The yellow ones are easy, in my opinion. The reason I think they're easy is because they're all the factors that you can open up your content management system, edit the article or post, and hit publish, and you're done. All the other ones are either off-page factors, or they require server configuration, or installing new plugins, or web development. And those are not easy. Those are the slow, hard ones to make progress on. And that's how I define easy. And what I've found over time is that if you can knock out like 5 or 10 of the easy ones, you'll typically see a rank improvement within like 2 to 10 days. It can be that fast. It's not always that fast, but usually that's about how quick the turnaround can be. And so I tell people all the time, find the easy ones you could knock out in an hour, knock them out, and get a quick result. Because the name of the game in SEO isn't to do every bit of work you can possibly do on a keyword. The name of the game is to get the ranking you want with the least amount of investment of time and energy. So get the quick return, and if you want more, go back for more. Do a second pass. But by all means, get that quick result. And your customers will love you for it because they want to see quick results. And so that buys you more time to get more results. So cherry pick the easy ones and knock them out. The next screen you'll see, the sheet you'll see in the Excel report, is the basic tunings. And these are not based on correlation. These are based on what we've seen commonly across all keywords. These are the factors that we see all the time, again and again and again. But we've grouped them by different sections, so like page size or meta tags and the title tuning and headings and videos and images. So you can take a category of factors and figure out how you stand, where you're graded next to your competition. I call these our second best guesses, because sometimes you'll have a keyword where not much correlates. You'll get your roadmap and there'll be very little in it. And that happens naturally. It happens whenever there's a keyword where people aren't competing in SEO. If you find a keyword where nobody's doing SEO, then none of the SEO things will have correlation. And so long tail keywords get that. And there have been a few very high volume keywords that we believe Google is manually curating. Those don't correlate. They break the system. Because you need people to compete in these factors to have those factors correlate and to get that signal. But what you can't see is way up here in this little blurry line, it says keywords and meta descriptions. And that's an interesting one for me this year because we made a discovery about meta descriptions trying to reinvent what a rank tracker is. It's one of my side projects. I think all rank trackers suck because they tell you, oh, today you moved to position 4. There's nothing actionable about that data. There's nothing you can do. I think a rank tracker should tell you why things changed or how things changed. And that's something very different. And so I'm trying to build that. So the question becomes, do meta descriptions matter? And I've had people tell me meta descriptions are not an SEO factor. You should only use it to tune your click-through rate. It's a CRO zone. It's not an SEO part of the page that you should be tinkering with. Those people could not be more wrong. They have no idea what they're talking about. What you're seeing here is change tracking applied to the Google search results. So the strikeout in red was what was removed by Google. And the highlighted in green is what was added by Google. And this website isn't tuning their meta description. And so what Google's doing is saying, oh, their meta description has nothing to do with the search term the page is ranking for. So instead of using that search term, I'm going to go to the page content and pick something out that's more relevant for the search term. And then Google's like, well, I don't know if what I picked is best for click-through rate. I should really pick a couple and A/B test them. And then every day, it does another sequence in the A/B testing. It cycles it through. So we see that this one went out and this one went in, and then it just flipped them again. Then this one, goes out and the other one comes in. And I do this change tracking on the web page too. So if they make any changes on the page, I know what's different. This page is not changing at all. And every day, it's up 3, down 3. Up 3, down 3. And what we find is the one that has more of those variant keywords 4 versus 2, the one with more is up 3. The one with less is down 3. This isn't an opinion. This is a physical observation of Google's behavior. So when people tell me that meta description is not a factor, you need to explain this. Because imagine now, this is business.com. They have 125,000 web pages. If they're doing this on all of their web pages, can you imagine the volatility in their rankings? Don't you think they should eliminate that volatility? I mean, that's hugely important. So you absolutely need to tune your meta description. You need to gain control. And I thought I'd share that because that's a pretty big discovery in my book. When we found this, man, I was blown away. I was like, what is going on here? Thank you. So the roadmap was our first best guesses. The basic tunings were our second best guesses. There's a sheet called the intermediate tunings, and they're our third best guesses. And they're the more fringe elements of SEO. They're our new discoveries. They're the weird hacks that people do. And strangely enough, some of those weird hacks work. And so we measure all of those. We don't typically recommend them, but if you need the third best guesses on what could be going on, what should I look at, we compile them together. And there's a new block in the intermediate because there's a new SEO factor in town. And it has a lot of us SEO scientists really spooked because it has a spooky behavior. And it's called sentiment. And let me show you an example of what this is. Oh. So if you do a keyword search for a term like Miami plumbers, what you'll see is Google is favoring these results that use the keyword best in their title. And Google recently released an AI API where you can measure and calculate the sentiment of a string. You can say, is this positive? Is this negative? So Google has the technology, and it's fast enough to do it at scale. It's blazingly fast. And we all of a sudden see this where Google is favoring results that use a word that are not part of our search term. And so this has us spooked. Are there other words? Turns out there are. If you do a search for jQuery plugins, the sentiment word is useful or cool. And so we're measuring these now. We don't know enough about it. And an important takeaway, we ran some preliminary experiments, and if you force the word best into a search result for a keyword where you don't see this pattern, you take a negative hit. But when you use it where the competition is using it, it seems to be beneficial. But we're still researching it. This is cutting edge. This is a brand new SEO factor that the rest of the world doesn't even know is part of the game. The next sheet you'll see is the measurement data. We call it the overview sheet. And this is the sheet that historically scares people. When Cora creates these reports, it measures over 75,000 data points in that 2 to 4 minutes. And so when you look at this nice presentation, a lot of the data is hidden. Because we know you don't care about all the websites that rank below you. We know you don't care about the factors that didn't correlate strongly. So we automatically hide those. We don't delete them. We just hide them. So you can highlight this whole sheet and click unhide. And whoa, it's even too much for me. But it's all there. all 570 factors, all top 100 results, all the supporting data. We try to be 100% transparent so that you can independently verify every report you do if you want to. And so what you're seeing in this measurement data is we have result 1, 2, and 3 from Google. So these are in the columns, those websites, and each row is a different factor. And we have the page 1 average for each factor. And we have your track domain. And so we highlight that, your measurements for each factor, your deficit, and deficit has a strategy to it. And by default, our strategy for calculating the deficit, we call the practical maximum. And if you're wondering what that is, well, it's another thing we invented. The practical maximum is the value from results 1, 2, 3, and the page 1 average. Whichever one of those 4 things is largest becomes the practical maximum. Then we use the power of subtraction to figure out the deficit. So that's how it works. You can pick different strategies. If you're, well, I'm number 3, I don't want to use the page 1 average as part of it. We have a dozen different strategies for calculating how you do the deficits. If you want the page 1 average, if you want 2 standard deviations beyond the page 1 mean, you want to go against the top 3, you can pick all kinds of different strategies. So I recommend to people that you need to maintain an archive of this data over time, because something special happens when you create a history. So how many people here were affected by the medic update? All right, so how many people here were affected by any of the Google updates? All right. So I don't freak out whenever there's an update. You go to Search Engine Roundtable every week, they're all just running around. There's an update, oh my God, what are we gonna do? There's some SEO weather and the sky is falling. I don't care, because I take a Cora report from before the update and I take a Cora report from after the update and I diff them. Because whatever changes in the correlation strength, that was caused by the update. I know how to respond based on seeing that, this one is up 13 and that one's down 5. Now I have an action plan. I know which ones to prioritize. Find the ones that are up a lot and do those first. And what I've found just over time, websites that eliminate their deficits see less volatility when there's an update. So if you're seeing pages tank, odds are you're poorly tuned in some area you need to get fixed. We can also, with the same tool that diffs the correlating factors, we can also diff the rankings. And it does the top 100 rankings simultaneously. So it's a movers and shakers. So I could say between the time I started with a client and today, we're up 24. And so by maintaining a history of these files, I can always go in and tell them where we're at, how we're doing. And it's for free. I'm not sitting there with some rank tracking software waiting for 250,000 keywords to come back. That's just wasted time. You need to get that time back and use it for implementing SEO. And another cool thing you can do when you have an archive of these is you can do progress reports. So you're probably going to take some of your SEO work and say, well, this is technical, it's going to go to the web developers. This one is content, it's going to go to our writers. And you're going to hand out that work, those changes to be made. You could diff for progress. So it's hard to see, but we can see that this factor is 19% complete, this factor is 9% complete. This one, the scope changed. No fault of our own, the problem got bigger. You know why? Because we're not the only people making moves. Our competitors are making moves, and if they make their measurements bigger, our work gets bigger. So we can detect that, and we can see where moves are being made. This is where they're trying to game you. And the ones that say new, they weren't there before. So that might also be your competitors making moves, but that also might be Google making changes. And then down at the bottom, we have the ones that are complete. So we have a full progress report on how we're doing tuning for this keyword. And then there's another tool we have that can trend. And things get quite interesting when we start looking at multiple reports together. So I recently created 200 Cora reports. Took me about 4 days to do it. And they were all SEO agency, Miami, Florida, SEO agency, Seattle, Washington. I took 200 cities around the world and have a closely grouped niche of reports. And I put it into Cora Trends, and I can get which factors correlate strongly across the whole sample set. And so I can find the ones up here, keywords in the HTML tag affected 70% of our keywords, 70% of our pages. That's a good one to knock out first because it's so broadly applicable across all our pages. But if you scroll down this report, you will find the factors that correlated strongly for one page. The one-hit wonders is what I call those factors. You don't want to prioritize those. You want to get these ones that are double digits across your site. And so if you're setting SEO policy, if you're telling people this is how you should write a product description, this is how you should write your meta description, this is how you should do your titles, this is the best information to apply because it's the most broadly applicable data across your whole website if you get those reports. And I don't have a slide for it, but I have a blog where the correlation study across those 200 reports, the URL is just seos.blog, seos.blog. It's only got 2 posts. I've got 13 viewers. So, but on that post, all 200 Cora reports are at the bottom. You can look up your city if it's in the set. And I have all the top correlating factors. So if you have an SEO agency and you want to rank for the term SEO agency in your city, all that data's there. It's all free. You can download all of it. You can check my work. You can call me bullshit. You know, the URL was seos.blog. And over the next few months, I'm going to be dropping more bombs in that blog. So the other thing we can do with this trends report is we can figure out where you're dropping the ball across the board. We can, instead of looking at what are the most common correlating factors, we can look at what are the most common deficits you have. Where are you falling short? And so we can find out here that 60% of our pages are short having variations in the body tag. Cheers. We can see that 53% of our pages are short in keywords per sentence. And we can see that our average deficit was 161 keywords and sentences. Oh. There we go. So there's another new capability you can do with these. And wait, there's more. So we can use this technology for outreach. We figured out that, holy crap, we can do something that nobody else is doing with this. We have a tool called Cora Outreach, where you give it just one of these Cora reports, and you can customize a template, and it will automatically generate this content for every website in that Cora report. So if you're doing SEO for chiropractors, you use Cora Outreach on your chiropractor keywords, and you can create this content for all of them. And it says, we noticed your domain name could rank better for your keyword with a few simple changes. We'd love to help you knock this out quickly. It creates the actual mini roadmap for that website and that keyword. Real data. If they implement those changes, they're going to see some improvement. And if you'd like some help, contact us. Completely customizable. The style sheets, the messaging. And it'll output them into HTML files. And obviously, you can use them for email, but I don't recommend that. Nobody likes that. You could do it if you want. I know some people are using this tool when they go and talk to clients in person. They'll bring a quick sheet. They'll be like, here's some quick, easy answers. We want to show you that we're using data. We back our recommendations with data. So here's a simple one-pager for an in-person meeting. And so there are SEOs that go out with this in hand. But you can also host it online. And if you tune it, and if you happen to know a little bit about SEO, you can rank for their brand and domain name. And when they vanity search their brand and domain name, you're going to have marketing material ready for them to see. And when you get out on page 2, 3, 4, and 5, those aren't high competition keywords. So you're going to knock those out of the park easily. And then you just sit back. Time is on your side. With an email, every day that passes, the response signal gets weaker and weaker and weaker because the email gets buried in their inbox and is lost to time. With passive outreach, every day is a new opportunity for that website to vanity search themselves and encounter this. So this has lingering value. And there's some gray hat people I know that are attempting to use this for link building. They're going out and creating, an article for Halloween-themed Moscow Mule recipes, and they'll create the article, and they'll make it a Creative Commons article, and then they'll create this content. They'll suppress the roadmap, but they'll create the content that says, hey, we noticed that your blog doesn't have an article about Halloween-themed Moscow mules. I happen to have a Creative Commons one. You can use it in total, or you can edit, modify it, use it however you like. If you do, just consider giving me a link back. And then they use their keywords for food blog, recipe blog, Halloween blog, and they make it so when all those websites vanity search their brands, they're offering to help in a way that generates backlinks. So, this is a no pitch thing, so I got to give it to you for free, right? So if you have a business card, if you have a scrap of paper, if you give me your email, I'm going to send you a free unlimited license for 2 weeks. You can kick the tires, write a review, do what you want. If you need help, let me know. Help you walk through it. And this is only for people in attendance here. This is my thank you to you for coming all the way to Thailand to listen to me. And so I know this is going to be streamed, and maybe we can do something for people on the web in the future. I'll talk to Matt about that. But if you're interested, if you liked what you saw here, please try it out. Please, you have nothing to lose. And I'd hope that when you're all out on the interwebs and you're on a Facebook group and somebody comes out saying, "You're using math or science and SEO, you're full of shit," I hope you guys jump on. Don't defend me. Don't defend my product. You don't have to do that. But they should not be berating people that are trying to bring integrity and data and reproducible results back into SEO. SEO has a black eye. We all saw it in Search Engine Roundtable when they had that article that said, well, all the web developers in the world are saying, what do SEOs even do? We do this. And we can't let people, just knock us down. We can't let SEO stay in the dark ages where you're throwing the chicken bones. 2 years ago, I did this with the website, so let's do that now. That's wishful thinking. We need a better way. And there are people out here that are trying to bring math and science into SEO, and we need to protect those people. We need to provide cover because they're going to empower us. I saw a group that is actively working on using machine learning to reverse engineer Google's algorithms. What you see today is going to be primitive in like 3 years. So the game is totally changing, and you do not have to know any math. You don't have to calculate the correlation coefficients. No, it's all done for you by the tools. All you have to want is the power. You just got to want the advantage. And it's there. And I thank you.
Everyone, give it up for Ted. That's freaking awesome. Really good job. Really good job. You guys, raise your hand if you learned something tonight. Well done. Well done, my friend. Does anyone have any questions? Now's the time to... Oh, here they come. Oh, boy. All right. Here you go.
Thank you. So I want to ask you, do you have any collinearity measures? For example, like an L1 or L2 regularization, just to find out the variables that are linear to each other. So like, for example, like if you have 100 variables that only one of them explains the variance of the response variable, which is the rankings. Maybe if you had something like that, we could actually like look at the one that, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more that needs to be done. So I totally agree that this is barely scratching the surface, and there are aspects to the linear math. So in my software, I do 2 correlation coefficients, just Spearman's and Pearson's, and the nerdy reason why I do that is that Pearson's tends to be better at correlating things that trend in straight lines, and Spearman's tends to be a little bit better at correlating things that trend in curves. And from one factor to the next, I don't know how it's going to trend. Cheers. I love this game, by the way. And then there's also the possibility that any one of the discrete factors I have that isn't correlating, if I combined it with something else, that combination might correlate. And my software can't handle that yet, but we're looking into it. We are definitely thinking about a next generation of this tool.
Ted, thank you for your presentation. It was really awesome. My name is Juan. I do have 2 questions. I do SEO in Taiwan, so that's in Chinese. Will Cora work in Chinese? And the second one is like, is there a way that I can write my own factors and plug it into Cora?
Partially. So for your first question on the language, yes, you can use Unicode languages. You can You can do your Unicode search queries in Cora. The user interface and the output reports are all written in English. So as long as you're okay with that, that absolutely works fine. And about 60% of my customers are all international in different languages. Could you repeat the second one again? Oh, yeah. When I initially built the software, I did have an open plugin API, but that was right around the same time that the Russians started ransoming people's hardware, saying you have to pay us a bounty in order to get your data back. And I thought it was too risky of a vector, so I closed it up. But, cheers. But I created a tool called Correlate Anything. It's part of the Cora suite. So you can actually do your own investigation to see if something's a factor. It'll do all the math for you. You put in, okay, here's my rankings. I got 1 through 250 for ranking in Google, and here's my factor measurements for each of those rankings. And then you hit the button, and it'll calculate the graph, and it'll tell you how it did with Pearson's and Spearman's. And we have SEOs that are discovering new factors. They're using that math engine from Cora to dissect Instagram currently. And when people find something that's a new factor, all you have to do is tell me and it's on my list. It doesn't take any arm twisting to get me to put a new factor in. I do want to get back to having an open API, but I don't know how to do it safely yet.
Is there any correlation, or have you done testing with local services for the maps rankings? Does this change the maps rankings, or have you tested that?
Cora only works with the organic web results. I've had a ton of requests to create a local SEO solution. So it's high on my list, but Cora does not address it yet.
I want to know most of the factors.
Wait, time out. Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah. So most of the factors that we saw here were on-page factors. Does this work equally well for backlinks and other off-page things? Number one.
Oh, sorry. What's your number two?
One more question. I want to know, when we do regression, usually we correlate whether one variable depends on the other, keeping the other things constant, right? But when we are comparing rank 1 and rank 2, both the websites have all the variables different, right? So they are not just two plain variables playing into the thing. There are various other things that they're doing differently. So how do you correlate just the two, keeping others constant?
Well, that's a very good question, and I'm working with a statistician who does cancer research, and he's helping me to figure out how to do proper regression in Cora. So I'm hoping to address that in future versions, but you're correct that is a limitation. Remind me on the other question? The backlinks, yeah. We integrate with Ahrefs, SEMrush, and DOM Detailer. So we go through those APIs and we can fold in all the different kinds of backlink metrics and social signals and even things like advertising spend and things of that nature. What we find is that those don't change quickly, and we all know backlinks are going to correlate strongly. So what most people end up doing is they want to save their API budget, so they turn them off. All the quick wins tend to be an on-page. And then whenever they hit a scenario where what they're seeing doesn't make sense, they'll turn it on and get the full picture and go, okay, that's what's going on here.
Hey, Ted, down here.
Yeah, it'll tell you.
All the way down here? Yeah, here we go. Do you take any lighthouse, page speed, anything similar into considerations in the reports?
Repeat that once more.
Any lighthouse score, page speed score, mobile score, anything?
I do have some very basic page speed in Cora, and it's counterintuitive when you see it because Cora very frequently will tell you to add more page speed. And that doesn't make sense, but it actually does. Because what ends up happening right now is that long form content, all that skyscraper content, it tends to work very well because of term frequency, which is an algorithm Google's using that basically says whoever uses it more is more relevant. And so all that skyscraper content loads slower. You have a lot more content, takes more time to transfer. Cora ends up telling you you need to add some page load time. From what I know personally about page speed is my theory is that it's not a ranking factor, it's more of a filter. I used to check my rankings from a ferry boat, and every time I'd check my rankings from the ferry boat, I'd be like, yes, best day ever. I'd get into the office to show off these rankings we got, and I go, oh, where'd they go? But what ended up happening is that Google was detecting I was on a slow internet connection, and they filtered out all the big bloated sites for me when I was on the ferry boat. So it's not that your rankings are changing, it's that you appear in fewer searches. You're getting filtered out if you're not appropriate for the connection. So by all means, you want a fast website, but it might not change your rankings, it might improve your traffic.
All right, one more for lefterist. Last question.
Oops. So correlation doesn't imply causation, as we know, right? So do you have anything in the roadmap, because you guys have the data, to insert some sort of like Granger causality, some sort of co-integration test, like augmented decay fuller, or something that can also go beyond just like a linear correlation, like a causation result?
Well, the great thing is you have all the data. I give you my critical values. There is more analysis that we need to do, by all means. I'm often triggered by the correlation is not causation, because the many times I've had it applied to me in the past, it's usually been by somebody who's trying to justify not using any data or math or science in their SEO. And so I know that correlation is not causation, but causal things do often correlate. And so what ends up happening, the reason why this works, in its current state even, which isn't perfect, the reason why it works is we're taking that field of possibilities from 570 possible things to spend time on in SEO, and we're reducing it down to the 2 or 3 dozen that have some evidence that suggests these are important. And by doing that, our guesses on where to spend our time get significantly better than everybody else who's trying to pick from the full list. And that's simply why this works. And it's why we do need to improve upon it. We absolutely need to do better modeling.
All right, I think that's enough. You've already hit it out of the park. Good job, my friend. Give it up one
Thank
more
you.
time. And thanks, everyone, for tuning into the Facebook stream. Say hi to these guys on Facebook. There's 100 of them. Look, show them how much fun we're having, sweating out here in Thailand. All right, so here's the game plan, guys. We're going over to Beer Lab at 7:30, so you got some time to get some food. Go home, take a shower or something like that, and then meet at Beer Lab, 7:30. It's all ours. So, yeah, we're going to have some beers, have some good times, and network. All right, guys. See you later.
Thank you.
Hmm.